who I haven't met before, my name is Vanessa McMullen, and I'm a social worker and a supervisor at North Shore Child and Family Guidance Center. I work at the Marks Family Right from the Start program, which is built for young children, and we provide therapy services and really work to meet families' needs of anything that they would experience for young children. And I know we have some moms with very young babies here, so I will say that I also coordinate our agency's maternal depression program, which is working with moms who are experiencing perinatal mood and anxiety disorders following the birth of their child, really understanding that the best way to take care of a child is to start by taking care of moms, making sure that everyone's doing well. So I'm here as a representative of the agency to share some of the knowledge about working with young children. So I know we met last month and we focused on temperament, which is understanding the innate way that a child or a person approaches the world, and whether or not the child's temperament makes this an easier task or presents additional challenges. So, if we talk today about what we want for our children when they navigate this world. So, I assume that we want them to grow up and be happy, healthy, really enjoy life. We want them to enjoy the world around them, but we want them to be treated fairly, we want them to be treated respectfully, and we really hold on to this hope for our children, even as we see all of these horrific events that are happening in the world around us. And unfortunately, as adults, we really learn that the world is not always such a kind, wonderful place. There are parts of it, but there's also pain, there's also sadness, there's also suffering, and we know that things change. We know that that's a part of life, even when we don't want them to. We know that things don't always work out the way that we want. And unfortunately, there's nothing that we can do about that. It's a part of life that we can't control. But the good side is that we can control how we cope with it. We can control how we and our children handle life stresses. So, we talked about temperament being an innate ability, but how we manage stress is not something we're born with. It's something that we learn. And it's something that as parents, we can and should be teaching to our children. So this, gosh, I'm sorry. That's all right. That was a bit quiet entrance. That's okay. So this notion of learning how to tolerate life stresses is known as a sense of resiliency, which is the ability to take control of oneself during difficult situations, failures, challenges, and setbacks. So resilient children are the ones that are going to be able to effectively handle pressure, they're going to be able to handle disappointment, and get things done even when there's an obstacle presented to them. So what are some challenges of being a kid?
Making friends.
Making friends.
Not getting what they want.
Mm-hmm. Not getting what they want.
Trying new things. Everything's new. So.
Trying new things, yeah.
Change. Struggling when things don't come easy for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Transitions.
Yeah, I mean, they really range. There are challenges that can either be large scale, global, whether it be poverty or hunger or societal expectations for a child. There's what we call typical life stresses, which are pretty much everything that you talked about. Socialization, transitioning to school, dealing with the birth of a sibling. And then there are some added ones that are not applicable to everyone, but are significant, like divorce or conflicts, health issues for the child or parents, the death of a parent, learning issues, anything that would present an additional obstacle. And as parents, it's our job to help children kind of work through these stresses, no matter how big or how small. So we know that the main factor in building resiliency in young children is the presence of nurturing, caring relationships. So these are the relationships that are going to provide safety, support, trust, unconditional acceptance, learning, teaching. You're going to model good communication skills, all of these things that are really going to show the best way to approach the world. And, so like I said, this means acceptance even in the face of failure, showing them that no matter what, it's okay. And hopefully you have this kind of relationship with your child. It's never too late to try and change it or modify it or bring it up to that level. But also looking at who else in your child's life can bring this sort of relationship to them as well. Building that safety net outside of your home, so whether it be a teacher or someone at school, a coach, an extended family member. You want to try to surround your children with these kinds of relationships. So when I work with parents, I always, and I think I said this last time, encourage them to bring themselves back to what it was like when they were a child. To really take yourself back when they were that age and think about how it was for you. What were the things that were easy? What were the things that were a little bit more difficult? And try to put yourself in the place of your child. So in doing that, just sort of a quick poll, who thinks it was easier back when we were children than it is for the kids now? You think it's harder for them now? Yeah, I mean, that's generally the consensus, is it's really hard to be a kid these days. And, you know, I know one of the things that we talked about last time that's a challenge is time. You know, it seems to be that we're always rushing to get things done. We're always trying to get things off the to-do list. Everything's about being productive. A lot, really more now, people are working out, both parents are working outside of the home. That's very different than what things were many years ago. So there's not always a lot of patience for when children take the long way to do something or the messy way to do something. There's not really the time and the energy and the patience to just let it play out and watch it happen. It's, you know, when you sit there and you're watching your kid try to tie their shoes, knowing you've got to get out the door, you can't do it, or it's much harder to tolerate. So it's important to really try to step back and understand that exploration is a major part of child development at this age. And when possible, to sit back and let it happen. And understanding that when creativity is shut down for the sake of following directions, it inhibits the child's ability to form creative thinking skills and to really develop a certain part of their brain that is so valuable. You know, lately everything is about following the rules, taking turns, sharing, all very important skills as well. That's all part of cooperation and learning how to play and be a kid and play with things the right way. But there's a whole other piece to it. And really, you know, it's great to see how sometimes when you give a little baby something, what do they do with it? They don't know how to play with it the right way. They bang and they toss and they put it on their head and they put things in and out. It's, you know, we have tendency to sort of lose patience for that as they get a little bit older, but it's still something that's continuing to develop. So I'd like to share an experience that I had in a group that I ran a couple of years ago, right from the start. It was a social skills group for young children, 5 and 6-year-olds. There was 3 kids in the group that day, and my rule for the group, it was that they needed to decide cooperatively what they wanted to do, and they had to decide to play something all together. It couldn't be like one did one thing and one did another. So I sat back and I watched things unfold, and one child wanted to play with the dolls, one child wanted to play with the kitchen, and one child wanted to draw. And it took a while, but they eventually came up with this great plan to play restaurant that had those tablecloths where you color. So they set up the paper on the table, and one of the kids set up with their doll, they were the customer, and the other one worked in the kitchen. And it was such a remarkable thing to see because they came there all on their own. And if anybody would have looked, they probably would have wondered what I was doing because I was just kind of sitting back, and it got a little loud and it got a little chaotic. Hello, good morning. But, you know, had I jumped in and intervened and suggested a compromise, you know, like, well, why don't we do this first or do this second, or we did what you wanted last time, we wouldn't have gotten there. And it really would have just given the message that Vanessa makes the rules in the group and Vanessa tells us what to do. And it would have really robbed them of that process to come to the decision on their own. And I was, you know, blown away by how they were able to do it. So sometimes if you can really just let it happen, the results are pretty remarkable. So, you know, the message in that is realizing that kids need allowance to learn how to solve their own problems. And there's this newer notion of helicopter parenting, which is, you know, parents that are, you know, hovering and trying to prevent any sort of discomfort, whether it be emotional, physical, you know, that being on top of, and not really giving children the freedom to grow and do what they need to do. And as parents, it's certainly our natural impulse to want to shield children from any negative feelings. We would say, you know, I don't want them to be left out. I don't want them to be sad. I wouldn't want them to feel rejected. But by denying them these experiences, we're really hindering their growth. That, that these emotions happen. These emotions are a part of life. See?
Creativity,
yes,
exploration.
They need to struggle a little bit. Struggling is an important part of life. It's something that they're going to have to learn how to do with at some point. So if they can learn how to tolerate it in small doses and, come through it, they'll get better at it, which is a really important life skill. So, a great example of this is if we let our children win. We're playing a game and we don't want to deal with the fallout, so we let them win. Or we don't we don't take them to a certain store because we know that they're going to have a tantrum and they're going to want something. And, the truth is that that's real life. Sometimes you just have to make it through the day. You can't set yourself up for what's going to be a problem. You don't always have the time to make something a long learning experience. But you have to try to find a way to work it in different times so that they can learn how to overcome it, that they can learn, all right, we go to the store, you're not going to get a toy, but this is what we're going to do when you come back if you do a nice job. And I'll go into all that probably in another behavioral strategies. So,
Can I just ask you a question?
of course.
It sounds like you're going to talk about that in another part, but should they be getting something anyway for just doing what they're supposed to be doing? Like, oh, you came to the store with me, and you should be coming to the store with me, but when you come home, you don't need to be getting like a special treat or a special moment with mommy and daddy because you did something that you're supposed to be doing as a part of their family.
That happens more when you're trying to revamp a behavior.
Okay.
The expectation is not that that's always going to be the case. You're right. You can't reward a child for doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that unfortunately becomes a little bit of a mentality sometimes. But if you know that something is a particular struggle, for a certain amount of time, you might need to put into place something that can be a little bit of a motivator. So when you come home, you'll get a sticker, or we'll stop and get you a library book on the way home. Something that would help them get over that hump and settle down so that it's not something that has to be done all the time. Okay. Hi. This is actually how a lot of my sessions run. I love babies, so it's wonderful. So in giving kids the message that things don't always work out the way that we want them to, one of the really most simple ways and most effective ways to help them through this is, and I think I mentioned this last time, is really just to validate their feelings. You can't always make everything better. So, think about if you have, you come home and you had a tough day at work and arguing with a friend and you're venting to your spouse. Do you want to hear, well, you should have said this, or next time you should just do this? Or do you just want to be heard? Do you just want someone to go, oh, that stinks, or I'm sorry that happened? It's not always up to someone to fix it. So it's the same mentality with your children. If they tell you that something's going on, you say, oh, that must have been so hard. Or tell me how you feel about that. Or, I'm sorry that you had to experience that. It's something simple that can go a long way. And it can also help them start to label their feelings a little bit, to go, oh, I was mad, or that was frustrated, and learn that you're not always going to provide the answers for them. It's okay to sit with that discomfort for a little bit. So if we, give an example of a child who has a disagreement with a friend, the natural impulse might be to intervene, to try to make it better, to call the parents, or to give them strategies for what they should do next time. Or, like I said, you can validate the feeling, oh, I'm sorry he wasn't nice to you. How did that make you feel? Or you can say, tell me, give them the tools or give them the support that they need to try to figure out what to do on their own. Tell me what you think you need when you're going to see him again tomorrow. How can I help you? And young children don't always know. And that's okay. So you can, or they might have an idea that's completely off base, but let them try. And even if you don't think it's going to work, just say, all right, well, that's a very creative idea. Can I help you with that? Or do you think, how do you think that will go? And you could try to play things out a little bit with your child, but, kind of sit back and let it unfold. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. Again, coming back and giving that unconditional support to say, that was a really nice thing that you tried. I'm sorry it didn't work out for you. I'm sorry you still felt left out today. Sometimes there's really nothing you can do to make it better other than to really praise their efforts. To say, you know what, even though he's not being very nice to you, you're still being so nice to him. I hope that he'll start to copy that behavior. Or, if you feel like you might want to take a little break from him, that's okay too. And then maybe you guys can try to be friends again in a couple of days. You can try to play together again in a couple of days. Okay? And, obviously just sort of a side note is, I'm not, these we're talking about sort of minor, typical kid issues. I would never want a child to feel like they had to handle an adult situation on their own as the parents who know that you're the advocates and that you would be expected to intervene if obviously there was anything more serious. So. Thank you. You're welcome. So another factor in really wanting to prevent those uncomfortable feelings is the idea of overindulgence. And this sort of goes, I think, in with what your question was, which is really the desire to give into our children's wants and as a way to prevent negative feelings. So, we don't want them to feel left out if everybody has the same toy, or as they get older, all these kids are getting new cell phones. You don't want your kid to feel like he's not in that same, same boat. Or maybe you feel badly that they didn't make the team, or that their pet goldfish died. So we try to make up for that, but it's not really sending the right message, because again, sitting with those uncomfortable feelings is hard to do, but it's important. And when we sort of buy things or do things as a way to distract from that, it's really only a temporary fix. Kids are going to ask. Kids are going to ask for things. That's a normal and expected part of development. They're always going to ask. But understanding that as the adults, it's important to say no to a lot of those things, and just either make it something special or make it a reward, or just say, I'm sorry, not today. Or again, always taking it back to those feelings, which is, I'm sorry that all your friends have the newest such and such, but your birthday's coming up in a few months, and put it on your wish list, and maybe you'll get it then. It's okay to have kids sit and wait. And sure.
At what age is that sort of the switch? So I have a 3-year-old, and that for them probably wouldn't be helpful because they don't necessarily understand that aspect of time. Like, I'll wait and get it later as easily, especially if it's something that's further away. And so I was always told to kind of just say, that's a great idea, maybe we can do that later, to kind of avoid the no confrontation and the power struggle. Mm-hmm. So you're not saying yes and giving in. You kind of just say, that'll be a good idea for later, and kind of hoping that it doesn't get brought up again. Is that the wrong approach for it's a smaller person?
It's not the wrong approach. It just kind of depends a little bit on the nature of the child. If your kid's going to follow up, because some kids can't understand the ambiguity of later, so they might interpret that as a yes. So you said I could have it later. It's later. I want it. Whereas,
But it is late.
So again, that idea of, I'm sorry, you can't have that. It's not, we don't just get toys whenever we want them. Might provoke a tantrum, especially for a 3-year-old. That's certainly a natural part. But again, it's something that if it happens enough, it becomes a little bit easier to deal with. To a 3-year-old, not getting what they want can sometimes be catastrophic. That's all they can think about. But they need to learn how to, tolerate that in small doses. And I may have said this last time, but the thing that we know happens is if children don't get this message early on, and it happens, they'll experience it different ways as they get older, they become adults that don't know how to handle frustration. And there's this whole viewing now that there's a lot of adults who don't know how to handle when they don't get their way. They've never really had to practice. And it becomes much harder as an adult to deal with that and foster appropriate relationships if you don't know how to handle frustration. So we look at it very much as an opportunity to learn. Not that it makes it easy, and not that there's ever really a lot of patience to say, all right, I'm going to do something that's going to provoke a tantrum. But just trying to look at it in a way that, it's a teaching moment. It's an opportunity to learn. Yes.
Do you have a strategy as a parent to say to yourself to calm you down in that moment? Because that's the kids, they could scream all they want, right? Like they're sitting there and they're upset about the no, but then you as a mom have to sit there and deal with it,
Yes.
right? And dealing with that, you have to have your own calmness and your own way to allow that to happen so that they'll get to that frustration point and be able to be okay with no in the future. But that struggle for like that week or whatever you're trying to change that behavior is, I think, hard for a parent who's going through it, who has other kids, other situations, has to be somewhere, you know.
Yes. No, you're absolutely right. Part of it is doing your best to set yourself up for success. So if you know it's, before 8 o'clock and you haven't had a cup of coffee and it's your day to, do carpool, it's not really the best time to probably sit and stick to something because your frazzle level is going to be through the roof. So learning, we talk about picking your battles, learning when it's going to be a good time for you to either have the opportunity to walk away or just like you said, kind of have like a personal mantra that just, you close your eyes, you take a deep breath. Like I said, you can even maybe walk away to a different room for a minute. They'll probably follow you. But, just trying to stay in a positive headspace is a way to say this is the thing I like to equate it to is, when we're dealing with young children or babies and, you're trying to get them to sleep in their own room, there's that firmer method of crying out. So, as an outsider, it's much easier to say like, well, just let him cry. As a parent, sitting there and watching your child in distress is so hard to do. But, and regardless of how you get there, when the child starts sleeping through the night, you go, oh, it really was for their own good. It was for their own good. They're sleeping better. They're doing better during the day. It was for our own good because now I'm sleeping at night and I'm more patient and more, sane in the morning. So a lot of times you see these things in hindsight when you're able to look back and go, oh, okay, we made it through. It was for their own good. But in the moment, that doesn't make it easy. It doesn't make it easy to sit there and not only have to deal with seeing the distress, but even maybe doing something to, I don't want to say provoke it, but to contribute to it and really saying, well, this is a learning opportunity here. So everybody's tired and busy and exhausted. So it's hard to have that mindset. But even if you could have that little seed in your head to say, all right, this is one of those opportunities for growth that Vanessa was talking about. Like we're gonna soldier through and try to utilize it that way. So, like I said, we're gonna talk about this going forward as it relates to behavioral strategies. We're gonna talk about other things. I have a little bit of an idea what we're gonna do for next time about more things that really can present these uncomfortable feelings and how to work through. Because as adults, it's hard. As kids, it's hard. As adults, it's hard too. And just really giving the message that the kids are gonna be okay. I know you're not happy, but we're in this together and I'm going to help you and really learning the strategies to help them. So working to disengage from when there's a problem is a good one, just trying to stay calm and stay centered and really just looking for different opportunities. I always encourage families to play games together, not video games, just setting up a family game night and to practice what it's like to win or lose. That's a skill. Again, not everybody has to play everything the right way. We have kids who set up Jenga blocks like a racetrack and then they bring the cars in. That's a wonderful example of using something that doesn't need to be the way it was on the box. So just coming up with all of those creative things and much easier said than done, but allowing sometimes these messes to occur and play and just giving the kids an opportunity to have the time and be a kid and enjoy what it's like to explore and find some joy in the simple things that sometimes brings us back to a little bit of peace again in a world that doesn't always bring us a lot of peace. It's nice to just kind of sit back and be very present. Turn the TV off, be present for your kids and let them take you where they're going. Go along for the ride. It's not going to be every day. I totally understand that, but maybe on a weekend, if you've got a half an hour, let them guide where you're going to go, so to speak. Okay. Any questions about anything I presented or anything else?
I just have a quick question
Sure.
about kind of knowing when to push your kid through it versus kind of just like my son, he's every day we have to go to soccer. I don't like soccer. I don't like soccer. I think he just doesn't like that he's not the best on the team, and his team certainly isn't the best, and that like frustrates him.
Mhm.
We didn't score any goals. Like, okay, but every week it's like this struggle to like, okay, we're going to soccer game. At what point do I kind of say, okay, maybe the kid just doesn't like soccer, versus like, I don't know.
Usually, a good idea is to get them to honor their commitment. So if he agreed to be a member of this team for the season, say, all right, well, I know that we talk every week that you don't like going, which is okay, but we have 6 more practices and 2 more games, and we're going to go and we're going to be an important part of the team. And then next year, when it's time to sign you up for soccer again, we'll talk if it's something you want to do. You know, and if this is what I don't want to go, they're like, all right, well, we said that we were going to go, and we need to be.
I understand how you feel.
I understand. How you feel. I mean, maybe you
I don't
can
want to
say
go.
it's you know, you can say it's frustrating when you don't score any goals, or you work so hard during the week. I'm sorry your team lost. Or you guys played a good game. I'm sorry that it didn't. You didn't enjoy it. Again, you can always sort of validate the feeling while accepting the limit. You know, I know you don't want to go, but it's important that we go. Yes.
I think I walked in, I think you might have been talking a little bit about sibling conflict. Is that what you were talking about?
Not specifically, but
Okay, well, I have a question.
no, that's okay.
You know, I've heard before that I was hearing somebody about like try to stay out of it or let them problem solve themselves.
Yes.
So one of the biggest challenges I have is with sibling fighting.
Mhm.
And my kid, I have a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old. So
Okay.
I mean, my hands are full.
Yes.
But you know, my 2-year-old and 4-year-old, I actually feel really happy and lucky that they really do love each other and they do get along so well. But there are just moments where I'm like, this is dangerous. Like you can't, you know, hit your sister. I know you're frustrated. I know she broke your magnet tiles, but like she's 2 and you know, from her point, she wants to explore them and try to be a part of that. And it's like I want to let them figure things out, but it's like where and when do I step in? Because I'd like in an ideal world for there to be no violence in my house. You know, but like sometimes it happens, and sometimes it's a poke or like a little shove, and then you know there have been times where sometimes it's like, you know, yeah, I'm like scared, I'm like you can't hit her, and I don't know like when is there just no, you cannot touch her like at all? Or is it like, you know, when do I step in? Because I don't want anyone to my house to get hurt. And so far no one has. So maybe it's just my own fear and paranoia that like one of them might actually really hurt each other. But I still just don't like the idea of them hitting each other. Right.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
You know, siblings are such a wonderful relationship because it's such intense love, and it can be such intense anger, and even in moments just, I hate to say the word hatred, but just really that love-hate relationship. If, you know, depending on the age of the kids, because a lot of times it starts with a poke, or it starts with a shove, or it starts with a subtle thing, and it has tendency to escalate. So if you think your kids need the, you know, zero tolerance policy, which is like we don't, you know, hands and bodies to ourselves, and you kind of want to start there, and you think they could get that message with a little bit of intervention at that point, then that's not a bad idea. You know, it's going to be harder for the 2-year-old because developmentally she's, you know, not understanding things the same as a 4-year-old, and that's something I hear a lot when I work with siblings who are older, is it's not fair. You know, how come I have to go to timeout, or how come I get a consequence and she doesn't, she's the one who started it. And, you know, to try to explain to a 4-year-old, well, that's, you know, that's life, it's harsh, but, you know, so being consistent and trying to give an age-appropriate consequence for both kids, you know, and understanding that even then it might not be perceived as fair, it's just sometimes a misperception on that. But if you can step back and let it unfold a little bit, and it's, well, she touched me, all right, well, tell her, you know, don't hit me. Or tell her, please don't touch my block. Is she gonna listen? Probably not. But giving him the words and the tools to try to work through it on his own is a great thing, because then hopefully, again, your daughter will also start to copy that too. And you can give her the same language if she's not doing it, to say, you can say, I want to play with your magnet tiles. And well, he said no. So we have to go find something else. So you can sort of guide them through. It's that same thing. You don't have to go in and necessarily fix it. You can give them the language and sort of help them. And the goal is that they'll internalize it and start to do it on their own. Okay. But there's really no blanket rule. It's more about what you sort of can see coming.
Yeah.
If you think it's heading towards a problem, it most likely is.
Yeah.
So you'd wanna.
And it's like I would say 80 to 90% of the time you're playing so nicely together. It's just like it can turn on a dime so quickly. So I feel like I can't ever just relax and kind of be like, okay, this is great. We can go play together nicely, and I can make dinner. It's like, all right, I don't know.
There's also a really good book, Hands Are Not for Hitting.
Okay.
Because Ellaby was in a program last spring, and there was a kid in that class who was like a big hitter, and so she would come home and be like, "Why did he hit me? Why did he hit me?" And I did a lot of research, and it's like one of the eminent books on hitting and teaching children kind of preemptive ways to deal with things.
Okay.
And it really was remarkable and her understanding of it. So that might be something to get to read to both of them. And she's all about it now. So if somebody does something, she's like, "Hey, hands are not for hitting. They're for holding hands. They're for eating." But it's really remarkable.
Well, it's hard because sometimes I feel like, and I feel like my son's feelings are really justified. It is really annoying. 2-year-olds are super annoying. And I'm trying to also teach him that. We have this thing now that's between us where she'll do something that frustrates him, and I look at him and he perfect. He looks at me sometimes and he'll be 2-year-old, and I'm like, I know. I'm trying to, so that's great. I think that's a good progress that he's learning that she isn't where he is developmentally, and he's starting to get that now. And good. Okay, you're right, 2-year-olds. So I think that's been progress I've seen in the last couple of months. But I mean, other people must have these problems.
One thing I do there are certain things that spark it, like the magnet house. Puck wants to, the older one wants to build these massive things, and the younger one, the only way he really knows how to play with them is to knock them down.
Right.
So what I'll do is if Puck really wants to play magnet tiles, I know Pierce is gonna come in and destroy. So I'll set Puck up on the table, and I'll get on the floor with Pierce. So Puck can build his little, just separating them, Pierce can't really climb up to the table. So I'm kind of if I know, because there's 2 things that trigger it. It's the magnet tiles and the Legos.
Right.
Without those, there'd be peace. But I kind of try to separate them. I don't know. It sometimes works. Sometimes doesn't, but just trying to even avoid hitting. But then they just hit each other.
The language we use in the classroom consistently is, "You may not touch anybody's body," and we give that language to the other child too. When that child is hit, we will say to that child, "Do not touch my body." So everybody it's simple. You're not saying don't hit, don't push, don't bite. It's just don't touch my body. And we use that from pre-nursery all the way to kindergarten. And we have found a lot of success with that. And sometimes the kids will hit me, right? I mean, as a mom, they will start hitting you, and you may say to them, "Do not touch my body," and you put them in a chair, firm, and they'll cry and they'll scream and they'll kick, but you are in charge, and don't touch your sister's body. Don't touch your brother's body.
Okay.
Simple.
Okay, thank you. That's
Yes.
really nice. Because I feel like then my 2-year-old, I'll notice sometimes she can get a little aggressive. She's very protective of the player, but she'll push, and I feel like it's because, I'm maybe it's because her brother has pushed her. And on the one hand, she's so strong, and I'm so grateful to have this strong girl because that's great. But at the same time, I don't feel going around but that's really helpful.
Simple.
Okay. Do not touch my body.
Do not touch my body.
Okay. I like that. Thank you.
And also, if your son is building something that's important to him, I mean, I say that all the time, you can say, "This is a great creation. Do you want to put it somewhere safe? And then we can get it tomorrow." So we talk about being a little preventive and just sort of, that way maybe when you're ready to knock it down, you can take care of that tomorrow, as opposed to waiting. Because we have tendency to sort of let things go. We have tendency to let kids play nicely until they stop playing nicely and there's a problem. So if you know that they sort of have a limit, like maybe after a half an hour, that's when you should probably start to be.
Right, or certain times of the day.
Exactly.
They're like both tired or hungry or, yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like you're pretty in tune to what's happening. Still tough.
I'm trying.
Oh my God.
What if your kid says they want to do something? Like, I really want to do soccer, and then they get there, and then they do it for like 20 minutes, and then they want out. And then they say they don't want, it's like I'm getting mixed messages from my kids sometimes.
Okay.
And I don't know, like, then they'll tell somebody, I love soccer. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what? You're completely making that up. You like run or cry every time to me. Like, but I love it. What? So I see it. I see them doing the activity, not being happy while they're doing it, but then telling somebody else that they love it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm confused. So I don't know to sign them up or not sign them up.
Is there any discussion outside of being on the field that they like it to you? Like when it's time to go, if they're excited? I mean, it could be that in the moment it's just too much for them. The practice is too long, or they're hungry, or they're easily distracted, or they're thinking about the Lego creation that they left on the floor and they want to be home. It could be a couple different things. I usually, again, try to encourage them to push through it. Kids have tendency to make a lot of generalizations. I didn't play with anybody at recess today. When in actuality, they were left on their own for maybe 2 minutes while they were like trying to figure out which group to play with. So when you talk to the teacher, they're like, "What do you thought?" They were right in the middle of it. So kids have tendency to hold on to like one little piece of something, whether it be positive or negative, and kind of go with that. So if they're saying they don't like soccer and it's maybe just soccer, then I would look at that at the end of the season. If that's a pattern, like they do soccer and then they do swim or they do karate and it's always the same thing, that could just be their coping. Like sometimes kids don't know what to say.
Right.
So they could just be something that they're like, well, I don't really like it, but they do.
Right.
So maybe giving them different language and, well, what don't you like about it? I don't like all the running. Oh, so running makes you tired. So by the end of the practice, you're tired. Okay, I understand that a little bit.
Right. It's okay to be tired. That's why.
Exactly. Yeah, you're working really hard. Of course you're tired. I get tired too. So trying to do a little bit more digging and exploring with the information that they're giving you. Get on board. Well, why? Let's break that down. What have you tried? What do you want to do? Kids just sort of get stuck on these specific blanket words and you buy that. So she had first and then I'll go to you.
Just picking up on the soccer thing, because my son is also in soccer.
Yeah, it's a little kid thing, yeah.
About soccer. But I mean, as a parent, I think it is so amazing that he's doing soccer. I think it's teaching him so much, like how to be a part of a team, how to work hard for something. Like if you want to score a goal, you have to work hard, and I think that's so healthy. But like what Ashley was saying, at what age did they really, because I think I agree with the commitment thing. Like my son last year was ice skating, he didn't like it, but I was like, we're gonna finish it, and if you don't want to do it again, that's fine. And I remember how like, he really doesn't like it, but I think with soccer, it's like, I can see moments where he does like it, but I'm nervous if next year, when he's 5 years old, letting him make that decision, and I feel like he's a little young, like he doesn't really know what's best for him. At what age should you, like if they say, if he's like, I just don't like soccer, I don't want to do it, at what age would you recommend being like, okay, because I don't want to be pushy, and it's like, if you don't like it, I don't want you to do it, but I feel like at 5 years old, like, a part of me feels like I don't know if he's ready to make that type of decision.
Well, thinking that if it maybe doesn't need to be soccer, if he doesn't want to do soccer, he needs to come up with, or there should be something else to do instead.
Right.
So maybe he wants to try art or karate, something like that. So to give the opportunity to maybe try something different or try something in addition to, as long as it's not too much of a commitment.
Okay.
And if you miss a soccer sign up and then they decide, well, I want to be on the team, or I forgot all my friends joined and now I don't, or I miss it, it's not the end of the world to say, all right, well, we'll try it again next time. I'm glad to know that you miss it. and maybe we can practice in the park so we can keep your skills up, or maybe it's not too late to join. So you can still find a way to develop that if it's an interest, but you don't necessarily have to push. If
Okay.
you think he enjoys it, even though he's saying he doesn't, you try it again.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Because you're right, kids don't always know, or you can catch them on a bad moment.
And he says he really likes the games, but he doesn't like the practice. So I'm like,
Yeah,
all
that's a
right.
theme, that's a theme.
I'm the opposite. He doesn't like the games because they always lose.
But as these kids get older and these activities become significantly more involved, and this is actually what we're gonna talk about next time, over scheduling. It's not just about soccer 1 or 2 days a week. It becomes these travel teams that are 4 days a week, and you have to sort of pick interests, and you've got to do everything you can to be the best part of that team and grow and make the cut. So it's a lot of pressure. So right now at this age, it's such a great opportunity for them to try different things. So let them try soccer or a music class, something, and start to figure out what kind of interests they have, because we want to know if they really enjoy it before it becomes a lot of the intense pressure that goes along with it. Because if you don't like it, like as we get older, we realize those pressures and the stress are working for something we love. You may be willing to give up something different because you've got to go to a practice on a Saturday, or you're willing to work hard, or you're willing to stay up late and do your homework. But if you don't really love the activity that you're doing, it makes it much harder. So this is a time for them to figure it out. It's one of the great things about being a kid is that they don't have to pick something. They can just try it all.
But I do think you're right that there are a lot of pressures in your community to be a part of the teams that do everything. And I'm sort of anti that right now. I played sports my whole life, but I didn't start till 3rd grade. So I'm you can go do stuff that you want, but let's do art this time. Let's do basketball this. Let's do that. Not commit to something for 3 seasons. They're doing this in 2nd grade right now. And I do feel like it's a lot of pressure for a little kid to be doing that all the time.
Yeah, it is. And it's what the teams need to do to be competitive. So it's starting earlier and earlier, because if you start in 3rd grade, you're going to be behind everyone that started when they were in the little pee-wee things at 3. But it's about figuring out what your child needs, how you function as a family. If you don't want to be at 6 practices or games all weekend because that's your time with your family, and that's an okay decision to make. So it's hard to resist those pressures when they're external, but figuring out what works best for you and your family is really key.
So, back to soccer.
Yeah.
A common theme. So my 3-year-old did it for the first time now, and he really doesn't like it at all. He hasn't he just wants to be picked up and held. He doesn't know what it is.
Okay.
It's a chaotic group. It's 20 kids just running in every direction,
And
shouting, and then 2 young people kind of just yelling at them to do things. So it's not really that structured, and so
Okay.
maybe he's just not really that into it. But what he likes to do is go and collect all the cones and put them in the fence, or to go and spend the whole time picking up cones that people knock over. And so that to me is completely unproductive. But he's kind of having fun, but it's totally not the soccer practice. Do you still go and just let him do what he feels like doing, or do you try to make him do the class, or do you just leave it for next year?
Well, if the coach or whoever's in charge is okay with that level of chaos and kids exploring a little bit, and he's not, getting into trouble for his behaviors, I have a tendency to think that that's fine. He's feeling like he's part of the team. He's hopefully picking things up. He's finding a part of it that he enjoys. I would say to go with it.
It's like all the kids are doing that.
I was going to say that's
Two-year-old
he's doing that
soccer,
on
it's
his own.
I know, it's like Turtle Cats, and he goes, he just spends all the time collecting the codes.
It's all-
He takes
like
down.
young
He's
kids.
figuring out how to make it work. It's probably very overstimulating. This is a brand new environment. He's probably used to kind of doing his own thing. Most kids are, when they sort of have to be corralled into an activity. That's why a lot of times kids first experience at school. If they go to school at 2 or 3, can be challenging because they're used to playing with what they want. They're used to saying, "Oh, I'm hungry. I want a snack. All right, let's get a snack." And it's delaying their immediate needs and figuring out how to operate as part of a group as opposed to yourself. And you're not the only kid. It's not only about what you want. He might want to pick up the cone, but guess what? Another kid goes to pick up the cone first. That's
Yes, after that, there's a bit of crisis every time around the cones.
learning opportunities. Then it's all right. He's allowed to be frustrated, but we still go back to soccer, and maybe you can help the coach with the cones after. all very typical, minor struggles that learn it's okay.
Thank you for this.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this is definitely, I think, gonna be like the theme of our conversations, which is, behavior modification strategies and really looking at how we structure our kids' times and days and lives and schedules. So that's more of what's gonna be on the agenda for next month. All right.
Do you have some handouts?
Yes, I do. So I have two, ones on tips for raising resilient children. So they're both different. And then two other articles. One is teaching children the value of mistakes. And then another is disappointment, helping children deal with disappointment.
Thank you.
I need one more.
So there should be 4 altogether.
Thank you.
I'll pass one back.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We're missing, we just need some down here.
Which ones do you need?
She needs.
Oh, there's a bunch here.
Oh, they're coming.
Yes, there's two different ones.
Thank you.
Are you?
Yeah.
I don't always let them win.
It's nice there.
I like go to sleep. And like I remember I used to say like board games with my niece and like obviously let her win, let her win. Yeah, and my dad was somebody who raised me and like he never let me like when there was tennis.
Yeah.
So like and that led me to be like an ultra competitive person sometimes. So like what's the fine line? Sometimes other times you're
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing like 5 games of Connect Four in a row and you're winning,
Yeah.
like there's a point where you're like, even with an adult, you're like, oh, I feel bad,
Yeah, that's
So to sort of read that, and you could, oh my gosh, I keep winning. Like, but I love that we keep trying. You're gonna win. We're gonna help you. So let's look at the board. We can throw them a game. I'm not saying, but there are some kids that never lost a game.
It's very much
You're
the
always
mind.
let them
And if
win.
it's not the
The expectation is that the older
So that's
sibling
what he
always
feels
loves the
like.
younger sibling.
Like, yeah. Because to him,
It's not real. So it's important to mix it.
that's like not something.
Do you have a good game that spans a variety of
It's
ages?
like he's very much like.
7.5-year-old, a 4.5-year-old. That's a tough age, like, my older daughter can do a lot, my middle guy can't do a lot, and so I definitely have to play separate games, but then it's like, I'm not playing a family game, I'm separating everybody.
Spot it is a great
And I
game.
am very
Spot it.
I'm like, no, like,
But they're brown cards and
and we
everybody
can do
gets them
it.
and you
So I'm like, how much of it
the
is me
center and you
making
find
fun?
things that are matching.
Ah,
It's a great
Right,
game.
and I think my 2-year-old can do that, too.
Oh,
Like, everybody can do it
he
together.
could,
Yeah.
that's
John
a
is
great
very
game.
much like
Spot
this.
on.
I'm like, no,
Rat-a-tat-tat.
he's like,
Oh, you gotta write it.
I
Yeah.
don't know that one.
Can I borrow your print?
It's
Spot it.
numbers, it's very easy and it's matching.
Okay.
Obviously it's like they change.
Even something like trouble, I mean, what kid doesn't
Oh,
have
right, I forgot about
Trouble. Yeah, that's good. Memories is.
Yeah, we always do memory.
Games.
Yeah.
Shoots and ladders are good. So, yeah.
I play a lot of
Bring out the
fun.
And
It's like a tube and you've got the sticks and you've got, pull out the sticks. It's like a classic game, it's probably been around for like 40 years. And you pull out the sticks and the marbles fall flush.
Oh, it's like the Yeti and the spaghetti, that one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't break the ice, the kids love it.
Like chocolate.
Hungry Hippo.
Play in the woods.
Yeah.
People don't play games, so I'm like,
I love it. Maybe he doesn't like it. He
No.
because they don't enter into a disaster, they want to.
Yeah, like when I try to do the kids in school, it was
Yeah.
really loud.
Okay.
So mine, I had to check that 5 weeks, so I didn't necessarily pick her up and like put her down.
Those kinds of
So
things.
mine like
They're
don't
like
like
things, and I'm like,
that's cute. Like,
so I'm like, come on, let's go.
and then my mom just kind of like, just secret, like, she might fall, like crack her head on the floor, and then like the anxiety starts. So like when you do a situation like that, where she's not responding to like, don't
This is my
Well, you're a little stuck because of your physical limitations.
Yeah.
Normally, what I would say is to physically pick her up off the couch. You might have to just let it go for a few weeks while you physically
But
recover.
whatever, you physically pick her up off the couch, like my husband's done that, and then back up.
Take her again.
Doing it.
Keep, or bring her to another room. Say, all right, we can't stay in the living room because you're jumping on the couch. We're gonna go maybe
So like redirect.
redirect. Or even,
So this is my question. I'm going to take that toy. You do this, you really it's not going to either kind of rewarding behavior that's not good. So this is
well, it could be, you know, keep them on the couch, they don't have to leave the room, and then they have to go and, do something else because of I'd say we're gonna have to turn the show back. You know, something, because you can't say safe. So you can connect the feelings of, you know, you're not being safe right now. So we have to, or even just say, to replace the behavior. You're jumping, sit on the couch together. I'm gonna sit with you and we'll read a book.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. I'll see you next month. Yeah, to replace the behavior with something that you want to happen.
Okay.
We're gonna talk about all this behavioral stuff. I feel like that's all day long.
Okay.
I do.
You said you I see. I
It's a little bit more tricky,
Yes.
or a lot more tricky. But do you only work with the young kids, or do you, because I've worked with a lot of behaviors, and there are different philosophies. And so yours seems very practical and realistic, and I was always had that with people. Would you ever work with older kids and just kind of fix them?
Well, right now, even in the early childhood center, I'm not working with young kids anymore. I'm doing really strict return.
Okay.
So I supervising staff that's in the younger children.
Okay.
And the age, my cycle's up to about
They have the language.
When they're a little older, they go to the doctor's office.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Okay. Well, he's 9, and he goes to Summit.
So they'll have heard it,
Yes.
And then my other kids are here, but it changes because he can't be disciplined ways.
No, that's a lot of that's a lot of what we do. And you know, when there's an issue like that, usually what we'll do is, sometimes we'll, like we're talking about, needs to sort of happen in a moment. So we'll practice playing games together in the moment, and we'll give everybody in the family things to work on.
You know what I mean? So we really sort of like worked it out, or just some of the fighting, like people, like it's, you know, it's different now. Like they're older, it's better. My concern is like the tantrums and like not so much, but like as a 9-year-old, not so much tantrums, but just basically
Like, not my teeth out.
They absolutely can hurt each other.
You know what I mean?
It's not
It's
just,
you know, and I think a lot of parents too, it's like, you know, we try, but following through and setting boxes, we're gonna do X, Y, and Z, you know, whether it's getting a haircut, you know, and like preparing it, it's good, but it's, you know, it's not 100%, you know? And as it gets older, it goes seeing lines of behavior.
Okay.
Just going through the process, you know, obviously, he's very smart, that's not, but it's just like learning how to do these behaviors out, check, you know, how to get the right to deal with the challenge, when you're not so good.
Yeah, even under, it's a hard thing to regulate your emotions.
Exactly.
So we have that struggle because, you know, this function is away, it's something that's even.
Okay, right.
So no, we don't go out into the.
You don't,
But we would, you know, like I said, we work on the learning work. Give them tasks to do, so they're extra for them.
Yeah, she was just touching the outlet. Okay. She was away.
I mean, I don't know what it's like. It's like mood disorder or like DMDD, OCD, but like not so much anymore. Maybe spectrum, but not spectrum. I mean, they don't have two of us.
I mean, that's since the total population, I was wondering if that was more.
No, because like, no, I mean, yes, it's lots of these guys, like bad customers, well, totally. But it was speech a little bit funny, yeah, like, you are trying, but like, oh, really,
So sweet.
but
Thank you.
I care so much, I'm trying, you're very talented.
Yes.
And
It's
I was like, and ask them really hard to make like, it was a hard place, so I mean, sometimes great, because that's what they
Because
take.
last year I was like,
Like, something greater.
One and three, and like,
Yeah, it was way too, like, it wasn't like an appropriate education.
but letting
Yeah.
sounds like a long journey.
It has been, but I'm always just like looking, but so you, but I think you guys still younger.
Well, my cycle is up to age 10.
Okay,
So if you were to come to me, you would not have things not frustration, start looking past it.
okay.
Once, we, I mean, it's not like once they start to not being it down, and that's.
Okay.
Giving that. Usually because I'm just all
Okay.
So I supervise this thing.
Okay. Okay. But, I mean, I think that, I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, you know,
Yeah, it's
I'll be back in a couple of
research.
weeks, even if you have any questions.
Okay.
I think actually. I'll bring, what about our service stuff? I don't have to answer any questions. All right, thank you for coming. Take care.
That is the one.
I know, I think
But it was so nice, you're like, the growth, because I'm like, yeah, so Lindsay's gonna guess too, and then she gets to learn, she is very disappointed. But I'm like, you have my resilience.
Oh, I have one question. Sure. As far as like obviously 2-3 years old, like tantrums. Right now, my husband's like, he's like, something's wrong with her. I'm like, no, she's 2. Like, yeah. But what do you do in that instant? Like, because we tend to kind of like let her feel her feelings. Good. And like let her have her moment. Good. But like, is that the thing to do? Or is it to kind of like, okay, what's wrong? What do I do to make these feelings go away?
All right, that's a good thing.
Well, that's sort of the premise, you know, you
Yeah.
can always make the feelings go away.
Yeah.
Negative feelings are real. So you
Yeah.
could say, I'm sorry you're upset, let me know how I can help you.
Yeah.
Or I'll give you a few minutes, or give you 1 minute, or I'll sit with
Calm
you.
down.
I'll
Yeah.
sit with you until you calm down, as opposed to being the reason they calm down. And because you can offer strategies, you can say, you know, why don't we go, would you like a hug, or you want to squeeze a ball? You can offer things to try to make it better, but be wary of trying to fix it.
Yeah. Okay.
Because fixing it
Let
isn't
them feel it.
teaching them how to fix it.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're
I
welcome.
was just telling Kelly, this was like the perfect lecture for me this morning.
Oh,
because
good.
I was playing this game with my 2 kids this morning called the animal game. It's just like, I'm thinking of an animal, it has sharp claws. And my 2-year-old, for the first time ever, guessed the animal before my 4-year-old. And he was like extremely upset about it. And I was like kicking, and I'm like, it's just this, should we just not be playing this game? Then coming in, I was like, yes, we should.
Yes, you should.
We're building a villain.
Yeah. Yes, that's it.
But I had like this moment where I was like, oh my goodness, but I had to teach him. I'm like, I know she got it, and we have to be happy for her, and you know.
Or even not, we have to be happy for her. You can be frustrated you
Yeah.
guess at first, but she must be so happy that she gets
Okay.
this was her first time.
I know.
So, you know, always being careful that we're not denying them their feelings. His
Right.
feelings are valid. He's pressed. He didn't,
Exactly.
you know, he didn't get it. He's used to getting it.
Yeah.
So to say, oh, you know,
She just said, oh, you just spit up on me later. Thanks. Sorry.
no, that's okay. I get it.
You usually don't spit up.
It's because I'm having too much fun.
She's like, oh, I'm tired of the yapping, and I want to go to mommy and me.
Uh,
all this yapping, and I want to go to mommy and me.
so yeah, I know.
That was
There weren't any toys for you to play with in here today.
I know, and I'll take a handout.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, here we go. Let's go to mommy and me. Okay, you've been really patient. Good girl. I know. Thank you.
You're welcome to
Oh, this is great. Thanks.
read.
One more. Always so fascinated by all this stuff.
Yeah, it's.
What am I doing every day?
Thanks for coming.
Yes,
Good luck.
thank you. All right, here we go.
Where's Kelly?
Hi, just me.